Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's Connect.
Morning, everyone.
We're really pleased this morning to be able to go live to the home of Hannah Wainwright. So, Hannah, are you there and can you hear us this morning?
Good morning. Hi everybody.
How are we doing, Hannah?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, we're all right, thank you. Just before we get started, an encouragement to people who are watching. It's lovely for you to join with us in this interview with Hannah. So if you have any questions, thoughts, or even just encouragements for Hannah, for the singing that she does with us for Legacy every week, for the preparation that goes into the singing company, or just to say hi, that would be lovely. So please share them in the comments and we'll share them with her.
Yeah, we appreciate, Hannah, that it must be quite the challenge to have this moment of peace in the household. So thank you especially. I'm sure this probably feels like a relaxing thing for you this morning.
It's a joy. I'm locked away in Phil's study upstairs and the children are downstairs in the living room, and Phil's got to deal with them. So it's great. So if you want to talk for a really long time.
Yeah, we'll draw it out for you. So the first question for you, Hannah, is what big changes have happened for you in the last 9 months or so?
Oh, well, quite a lot, really. So at the start of the pandemic back in February, I'd just gone back to work after maternity leave with Poppy. And I was working in the school in Wakefield where I've worked for the last 9 years, teaching a year one class 2 days a week. And then the rest of the time I was home with Poppy doing the school run at parent and toddlers, that kind of thing. And then the pandemic happened and the schools were closed to most of the children. So I spent a few weeks where I was in school looking after the children of key workers and vulnerable children, probably about 1 working day out of 4. And the rest of the time I was at home trying to homeschool Max, stop Poppy from injuring herself with whatever she'd managed to find about the house, and set work for my 35 and 6-year-olds that I was looking after at school. But actually that didn't last for very long because back before I'd even really heard very much about coronavirus, I'd handed my notice in at February half term because during my maternity leave with Poppy, I had written a PhD proposal. And that was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. Going back to uni was always sort of in the medium term plan. And so in January this year, I had that accepted and got a place at Leeds to go and do some more study. So I'd handed my notice in with the intention that, I'll finish working, I'll do a bit of supply. It'll give me a bit of more headspace if I'm not working in school, maybe a bit more time because I could do a bit, slightly fewer days. And then I'll write a funding proposal to persuade somebody to pay for the PhD. But obviously that all went out of the window because the schools were largely shut, so there wasn't initially wasn't any supply to be had, and I was home with the kids anyway, so it wasn't something that I had the bandwidth for. And then Poppy and Max didn't quite agree with me that I should be spending hours sequestered away in the study working on a funding proposal. So from sort of March through to September, I was home full time with the kids, trying to persuade Max to do some learning and Poppy to, not pull everything out of all of my kitchen cupboards. And then from September, Max has been back at school, which has been great. So I've had a little bit more time. I mean, Poppy's decided that now's a good time to drop a nap, which is not especially helpful. But I have had a bit more time to work on this funding proposal, which is due February. So I'm still working on that and home with Poppy. And so that's how life's changed. It's very different. It looks very different from how it did in February.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it likely to have looked very different for anyone who hasn't gone through significant change, but to change work and look to go back to study is a big thing in itself, isn't it?
It is.
I remember, Hannah, very early on when I met you, one of the first things you said to me is that you really love learning and that you loved studying at the time at university and since. So it's really exciting, that you've got an opportunity to go back to that at this stage of your life, which is great.
It is. Thank you.
I wonder if you could share then, through all of that, what have been some of the highlights and challenges that you've gone through during this time?
Yeah, so I think the biggest highlight and the biggest challenge comes from the same source, which is the amount of time that we're spending together as a family. And obviously there are lots of really good things about that. I didn't expect to have this extra bit of time at home with the children. And it is a real blessing, particularly given that if I get this funding as of September next year, life's going to look incredibly different again. I'm going to be very busy. And so the time that I've had at home being a stay-at-home mum, which I've not done before, apart from on maternity leave, has been definitely a blessing and something that I'm glad to have had. It's also meant that Phil not doing the commute every day, not preparing band practices and out at band practice and doing all the things that he normally does in an evening, has been around more with the children. And on the Zoom fellowship last week, Max was asked what his highlight was, and it was that Daddy had taken him to the park more. And that is certainly the thing that's happened and has been a lovely consequence of the lockdown. But also it's been quite trying being at home all the time with the children and not having anywhere to take them, or not having the help from family and friends that I would normally rely on, not being able to do things like go to parent and toddlers or go for lunch in the coffee shop and get out of the house with the children. I mean, when Max was Poppy's age, we never had cupboard locks on the cupboards, and we didn't have a stair gate because I wasn't in the house enough to need all of those things. But it's been very different for Poppy. And it's also been a big challenge trying to get any peace. I think the pandemic's been really different depending on what your circumstances are for different people. And I know for a lot of people that live on their own, there's been a lot of isolation and a lot of time wondering what should I do next and being bored. That has not been my experience. It's been the opposite, that 5 minutes peace is something that's been very hard to come by. And particularly while I've been trying to write this funding proposal, I mean, had I had childcare, I would have had it done long ago, but trying to grasp even half an hour to work is proving challenging at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like a very busy household, and you're right, it's so different for each different person, isn't it? I'm just going to read some of these lovely comments out that are coming through. There's a lovely one from Noah and Alicia that say, Hannah, we miss your actual face. Thank you for all that you do. We've got another lovely one from Carol Barwick that says, thank you so much for all your inspired and hard work with our children. Singing Company is sounding so beautiful, which is true, isn't it? And I know that the videos that the Singing Company have produced have gone far and wide, actually, I think, and they made it into the Salvationists. So, you know.
Wow. And you were in the Congress. I didn't realise you were in the Salvationists.
Oh, I know. You've made it big time.
I think probably what a lot of people wouldn't realise as well, Hannah, is that you've been brave enough to task the Singing Company with learning brand new songs.
Yeah.
You know, here's a backing track, here's me singing a song, and here's some notes. Good luck. Have you found
They've done a very good job of it as well. They've worked. The children have worked really hard, and parents who've been teaching them things. It's been really good to have that excuse to keep in contact with everybody, that we've got something to produce every week. It means that we're always talking, and that's really good.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I know that those children and young people will definitely feel your influence, and you are a great role model for them. And I'm sure as a church, we're all very, very grateful for that. So you've spoken a little bit about Max and Poppy. I know our church family have been missing seeing Max and Poppy and all our children and young people in the flesh, running around the hall, you know, causing chaos wherever they go. And so what are some of the changes that you've seen in them over this period?
Well, lots. Poppy in particular, when the first lockdown happened, Poppy was 13 months old. She was a baby. She wasn't walking. And now she's turned into a very willful toddler who has lots of opinions about everything. She's up and down the stairs. She's doing lots of talking. Her favourite word is brother, brother. And she shouts it sometimes in frustration and anger. So sometimes because she's excited to see him. It's always the first thing she says when she wakes up in the morning, and she goes to find him in bed and wake him up. And yeah, she's changed beyond all recognition, really. Max, I think the changes are a bit subtler with him being a little bit older. He's taller and faster. His favourite television programme has changed. It used to be Paw Patrol. It's now Dennis and Gnasher, which is the modern, slightly more PC version of Dennis the Menace. Which is not something that I needed in my life. I asked him what he wanted for a Christmas present, and he said a pea shooter. So that will not be a welcome gift in our house.
Knowing how willful and characterful Max is, I suppose the last thing you need is a mischievous role model. Yeah,
it's not what you want, but it does keep him quiet. He does love it, and he, my mum bought him a skateboard during the summer, and he has spent lots of time on that. He's very good at putting his elbow pads and wrist guards on before he does it, but he's skating up and down the garden, perfecting his skills so he can be as good as Dennis.
Amazing.
Brilliant. I fully expect.
I know you just said that the last thing that he needs is a mischievous role model, but he has got Uncle Luke. So I think between Uncle Luke and between Dennis, it makes for an interesting future, really.
They've got it covered, haven't they?
I fully expect a change in attire of Max, because we're used to seeing him in a Leeds shirt, much to my disappointment. But if he doesn't come to church when we're back again with black and red stripes, I'll be quite disappointed.
Yeah, I think he'll be quite disappointed as well.
Hannah, we know that you love music, and I know that you're one of very few people that I know have completed the Bible in a Year challenge. So actually, is there, I wonder, a piece of music and or scripture that you'd like to share with us this morning?
Yeah, so I've got 2 in 1, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
I have been watching The Vicar of Dibley again late at night to help me turn my brain off before I go to sleep. Don't normally manage a whole episode, but I have been watching a bit of it. And since I was doing that, the Howard Goodall version of The Lord is My Shepherd has been going round and round my head. And the words of that psalm, I think, are particularly apt and appropriate at the moment. And a bit of rest by some cool water would be something that I definitely enjoy. I'm sure if Max and Poppy were there, though, they'd go and jump in it, splash all over and disturb any peace that I might have got. But I can read it and I can imagine the stillness and the peace, and I can listen to the music. So I'll read it to you now. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Beautiful, lovely words, thank you. And I know that'll resonate with lots and lots of people. And I'm sure there'll be many tuning into episodes of The Vicar of Dibley this Christmas as well. I just want to share a lovely message that's come in from Jenny Hill that says, thank you, Hannah, for everything you are. You have often kept the girls going. I so miss having those lovely conversations with such a beautiful person. Miss you.
Oh, thank you,
there are some other lovely encouragements there. All very true of you, and I know that lots of people will be pleased to have heard from you this morning, and also happy to offer prayer up for you. So that's our final question for you, really, is that what would you ask for prayer for?
Yeah, so a couple of things, really. I haven't actually told you anything about the PhD that I'm hoping to do, but it's actually going to be about how we can use music and drama performance to support migrant families, children and parents in primary schools to integrate into those new communities, and to support the community to help to achieve that. And I think that whilst migrants covers a whole big group of people, there are a lot of vulnerable people in that category. And I know that a lot of the children in that category in schools around have had a really tough time during the pandemic. There are people that are living in housing that's not adequate, that are living in crowded places. There are people in camps in Calais without good sanitation, all that kind of thing. So that would be one group particularly that could do with prayer, but also parents more generally. We've got actually quite a lot of new mummies, expectant mummies, people in the call with young families, and parenting in a pandemic is a particular challenge. It's something that none of us planned for, and they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a corps in my case, and we've not got access to that in the same way at the moment. Maternity services are all upside down. People are contemplating hospital stays without visits from family, and it's really difficult in that way. So prayers for my parenting in particular, and Max, and particularly Max, as he's older, is really missing his friends now and getting fed up of not being able to see people. And so for wisdom for the parents in our core, that we would guide our children in the right way during this difficult time would be really helpful.
Yeah, brilliant prayer points there. And if you are watching, please do support Hannah through prayer in those areas. I know we were just speaking to Becky the other day, weren't we? And she was just saying the exact same thing. She's missing having the whole church family helping to raise her children, Imogen, and knowing that, of course, Eloise is arriving. And I know that actually, to reflect that back on you, there will be so many families that appreciate the way you also support raising their children as well. So be assured of our prayers. Your PhD sounds so interesting as well. I know that people will be really excited to learn more about that in the future. And it's a really great cause and a really great heart that you have for that community of people.
Yeah, it'd be great to introduce you to Connect in the future and as Dr. Hannah instead.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you.
You'll be glad to know that Imogen Elliott has said she's happy to buy Max a pea shooter for Christmas. So you've got that to look forward to.
Excellent. I'm so glad I mentioned it.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Love to you and all the rest of the family.
Yeah.
And we're going to move on now to listen to our Bible reading, which is brought to us this morning by Carol Barwick. Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye.
Bye.